The four horsemen of the apocalypse. Since they first appeared in vision to the Apostle John, they have haunted the imagination of scholars and theologians. Who are they? And what is the meaning of their terrifying ride? This week on The World Tomorrow, Richard Ames.
Nearly 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ revealed to his servant, the Apostle John, in a vision, a series of startling prophecies. John recorded what he saw, and it became the last book of the Bible. It's called the Apocalypse, or Book of Revelation. These prophecies are filled with mysterious symbols, foreboding creatures, and frightening images. But the prophecies that the Apostle John received were not for his day, but for another generation, one that would live at the time of the end, our time today. Using the language of his day, John described as well as he could the visions of these foreboding future events. Today on The World Tomorrow, I'll be discussing one of the most famous yet puzzling symbols in the book of Revelation, the legendary four horsemen of the apocalypse. Since John first recorded the details of their grim ride, scholars and laymen alike have wondered ever since what they represent. There have been many ideas, but it hasn't been till our modern age that the keys have been found to unlock the real understanding of these strange horses and their terrifying riders. It's in the 6th chapter of Revelation that we read of the four horsemen of the apocalypse who ride through the earth.
And I looked, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer. When he opened the second seal, another horse, fiery red, went out. And it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword. When he opened the third seal, I looked, and behold, a black horse. And he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. When he opened the fourth seal, I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth.
What do these strange horsemen mean? Or do they mean anything for us today? Are they only vague symbols representing in general terms the misery and suffering that has so often marked the course of human history? Or is there some more specific meaning, a sequence of devastating events that have happened or will yet happen? These are the questions we'll be answering on today's program. You need to know the true meaning of the four horsemen of Revelation, because they're going to affect your future. These four horsemen of the apocalypse have been interpreted by writers and movie makers to mean many different things. They become something of a cliche. They seem to be fair game for anyone who wants to describe any sequence of catastrophic events in any place and in any time period. When we take these and other prophetic symbols and sort of fit them in a general way around some points we want to make, we miss the real significance, the real purpose of why these prophecies are given. That way we'll never understand them. So it's very important that we get something firmly in mind before we begin. It doesn't make a bit of difference what I or any other man thinks or says these prophecies mean. My opinion about these matters is utterly worthless. So is anyone else's if it conflicts with what God has revealed in the pages of the Bible. From the beginning of the book of Revelation, we learn from the very first verse that this is Christ's revelation from God to man, and that He alone is the revelator. Notice it here in Revelation 1 and verse 1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave Him to show His servants, things which must shortly take place. And He sent and signified it by His angel to His servant John. It's unfortunate that so many versions of the Bible have made the mistake of subtitling this book, The Revelation of St. John the Divine. John was just a human scribe Christ chose to record and preserve the visions. You'll notice that many modern versions of the Bible label this book correctly, The Revelation of Jesus Christ. Let's also note that this is a revelation, a revealing, not a concealing. It's a revealing of things that will soon come to pass. The word apocalypse comes from a Greek word meaning to uncover or to reveal. These visions were written to give understanding, not to obscure. We can know what the future will hold. And while we're looking at the opening verses of the book, let's notice something else. In the introduction to this book, in chapter 1, verse 3, we read, "Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written in it, for the time is near." So let's do that. Let's read and understand. And in particular today, let's focus on the four horsemen described in Revelation chapter 6. Remember, in this book of Revelation, Jesus Christ outlines the sequence of events that lead up to His triumphant return. It also explains how and why God has to intervene in world affairs in the end times. In other words, there's a reason, a rationale for God's intervention. He tells us plainly why He's going to allow these events to happen. The principal theme of the apocalypse, then, is the events surrounding the day of the Lord. That's the time when God dramatically intervenes in the affairs of men, culminating in the return of Jesus Christ to the earth. The events of the book are recorded in sequence. So in order to understand the four horsemen, we need to pick up the story flow in chapter 5. In chapter 5, John was shown the mysterious scroll in which we later find the four horsemen. Let's get the important background information now in chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, where we read, "And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, 'Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?' And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it. So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it." So again we see that no mere mortal is qualified to reveal Bible prophecy. But let's read on in chapter 5, verse 5. "But one of the elders said to me, 'Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals.'" That, of course, refers to Jesus Christ, who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Of Him it said in verse 9, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation." So here are the background events and details which set the stage for the four horsemen. Beginning now in chapter 6, John watches as one by one the seals are stripped off and the meaning of the scroll is revealed. What does John see?
"And I looked, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer.
What is this white horse? Why does its rider have a bow and a crown? And what or who is he trying to conquer? You know, many commentators lean to the conclusion that this is speaking of Christ himself, because Christ is prophesied in Revelation 19:11 to come on a white horse. But that's not correct. Certainly this horseman bears a certain similarity to Christ, but Christ has not been going forth to conquer nations by force, symbolized by a bow. And this happens before his return to earth as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That is much later in the prophetic sequence. Let's see what Jesus himself describes as the prophetic sequence of events. The prophecies of Revelation are an expansion of a famous prophecy recorded in Matthew 24. Jesus gave this amazing prophecy on the Mount of Olives shortly before his crucifixion. It's referred to as the Olivet prophecy. His disciples asked him the same question that the book of Revelation addresses. What will be the signs that lead up to Christ's second coming? He summarizes the key events, and when this Olivet prophecy and the book of Revelation are put together, the understanding becomes clear because they both discuss the same future time setting. Notice verses 3 through 5 of Matthew 24. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many." Christ prophesied that false teachers coming in his name, but teaching a false religion, would be the first in a series of events leading up to his second coming. False religion indeed has deceived many, and is prophesied to deceive many more before his return. That is the meaning Christ himself assigns to the white horse. This horse and its rider represent a false vision of Christ and a false religion that resort to military might to conquer and subjugate whole peoples and nations. The lesson from history is that religion, when in possession of the bow as a symbol of military power, has used armies, soldiers, and weapons of various nations to achieve its ends. We're going to see that again with even greater intensity in the years ahead. What happens next? We'll discover that as we read on in the sequence of events described in the book of Revelation. But first, I'd like to offer you a free booklet that explains this subject in much greater detail. It's called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Since these four grim riders appeared to the Apostle John in a vision, the meaning of these four horsemen has haunted the imagination of scholars for generations. Who can decipher what these four horsemen really represent? Chapter 1, entitled Christ the Revelator, describes how Jesus Christ himself revealed the true meaning for our day of these four mysterious riders. Chapter 2 describes the true identity of who the rider of the white horse really is and the conditions that will culminate in the end-time fulfillment of this prophecy. The remaining chapters describe in vivid detail the identity of the last three horsemen as revealed by Jesus Christ. This is something that's going to have a great impact on your life in the years ahead, and you need to know about it. So be sure to request this free booklet, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Along with this booklet, if you're not already a subscriber, we'll be sending you a free subscription for as long as you like to the Plain Truth magazine, which analyzes world news in the light of Bible prophecy. It also contains other articles dealing with the family and other social issues, and there's no subscription price. I'll be offering this free literature again at the end of today's program. Now let's continue with our program, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, as outlined in the 6th chapter of Revelation. Following the white horse, symbolizing religious deception, comes another frightening horse and its grim rider as the second seal is opened.
When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come and see." And another horse, fiery red, went out. And it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword.
killing people, taking peace away, a great sword, is the second event Christ prophesied when on the Mount of Olives, as recorded in Matthew 24. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. The meaning of the red horse, as revealed in the Olivet prophecy, is a world at war. Do you see how the Bible is consistent with itself if we let it interpret itself and don't force our own ideas on it? Ever since mankind has been on earth, there have been violence and wars. We have witnessed in this century 2 world wars that were so terrible that people called each one the war to end all wars. They weren't, of course. Sadly, mankind has not learned how to settle his differences peacefully. And at the same time, our technology of war has been advancing so rapidly that we've entered into the time when the utter destructiveness of war has brought us to the brink of annihilation. Christ told us nearly 2,000 years ago that wars, even limited nuclear wars, would not bring humans to their senses. There would be a time at the end of the age when global tensions would increase and the world would become convulsed in many battles, a time of world war to end all wars and civilization itself. All this is symbolized by the terrible red horseman as he rides across the world stage, taking peace from the earth with his great sword. In the wake of the white horse, symbolizing religious deception, and the red horse, symbolizing war, there comes yet another horse with its grim rider.
When he opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a black horse. And he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a penny, and 3 quarts of barley for a penny. And do not harm the oil and the wine."
What is the effect of war on the survivors? Even when the fighting stops, the land is devastated, and food shortage and famine are the result. It happened in Europe after the last World War, in Cambodia a decade or so ago, and in Ethiopia even today. War wreaks havoc on agriculture. Much of the chronic hunger and malnutrition in the developing world today is not because of lack of food, but the lack of resources to buy it and distribute it. Many scientists are now saying that the side effects of nuclear war would eventually cause even more deaths on this planet than the immediate effects of the blasts. Clouds of smoke and dust and firestorms would reduce the amount of sunlight reaching the Earth. Some authors and journalists have called this a nuclear winter. The effects on agriculture would be catastrophic. Ironically, the death toll could eventually be even greater in some regions of the world that were not directly attacked by nuclear weapons. Notice these comments from Cornell University scientist Mark Harwell. Most of the world's population, as many as 4 billion people, could starve to death in a nuclear war rather than die of burns or radiation. Rather than reflecting images of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a modern nuclear war would, for most people of the world, much more resemble current images of Ethiopia and the Sudan. And this is the grim picture we see beginning to unfold as the 3rd horseman rides out of the pages of prophecy. Some nations, by carefully rationing their reserves, might be able to survive. But for millions of others, there is no alternative but hunger and starvation. Jesus warned us of the consequences of these future wars long before we realized the possibility of a nuclear winter. So these 3 horses, symbolizing false religion, war, famine and disease epidemics leave confusion and suffering behind them. And on their heels comes the last of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
When he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth.
The pale horse symbolizes sickness, plague, and death. At this time in the future, civilization is breaking down from all the effects of the four horsemen. It's becoming every man for himself. Even nature itself turns against man, as wild animals and plagues spread by animals further ravage the weakened population. Jesus himself stated in the Olivet prophecy that there would be pestilences as a major part of these world-devastating events. When we let the Bible interpret its own symbols, we can see that these horsemen represent trends that occur throughout history, but they would greatly intensify in the years just before Jesus Christ returned to this earth. These four horsemen foretell a time of unparalleled horror that our civilization faces. It's a frightening picture. These are not easy things to think about, and it might seem as if the book of Revelation is very negative, but it is very real, and we need to wake up and understand where our world is heading. Now, there is much, much more to the apocalypse than these prophecies in the first few chapters. It has a powerful and triumphant end. The encouraging thing about the book of Revelation is, as a friend of mine once said, when we read the end of the book, we see that we win. All humanity does win in the end, but not before some terrible lessons have been learned. We call this program The World Tomorrow because we want you to understand that a better world is coming. A kinder, gentler, more peaceful world where all people can live without fear. The book of Revelation tells us in advance the major events that will lead up to the very end of this age and the beginning of that world tomorrow. It's a book for our time. Christ the Revelator tells us of things that will shortly take place. When John first saw these things, their final fulfillment was a great way off. But now we're close to the time. They will occur in the lifetime of most of us watching this program. So you need to know more about it, you need to understand it, and then you'll know what you should do to prepare for these earth-shattering events. Jesus did say it was possible to be protected from what is coming. In Luke 21, in verse 36, we read this, "Watch you therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man." Christ promised protection for those who will heed the warning, stay alert, watch world events, change their lives, and start making right choices. This age, with its heartbreak and uncertainty, its cruelty, ruthlessness, and suffering, has almost run its course. You need to know more about the events that are prophesied for the future, and to understand why what seems at first bad news is actually leading to very encouraging news. You shouldn't take my word for it. What you need to do is study and prove for yourself what I've said today. I'd like to offer to each of you this free booklet, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It explains the meaning of these four horses and their riders as revealed by Jesus Christ in great detail. The four horsemen of the apocalypse will help you grasp the significance of these prophecies that at first seem so hard to understand. Chapter 1, Christ the Revelator, shows how Jesus Christ revealed the meaning of these four horsemen. Chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the booklet describe in great detail the revealed identity of each of the mysterious riders of the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse. The last chapter, chapter 6, shows that the knowledge of who these horsemen are and how to escape their destructive force will be very important to you. You need to face the future realistically. You need to check into it for yourself and understand these prophecies of the apocalypse. All of this material is thoroughly explained in this informative booklet, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Along with this free booklet, we'll be sending you, if you're not already a subscriber, a free subscription to the Plain Truth magazine for as long as you like. It's a magazine read by millions worldwide. The Plain Truth is the only magazine of understanding giving you in-depth analyses of world events and trends in the light of Bible prophecy. You'll begin to understand the real significance of the events that are unfolding in the news today. The Plain Truth gives much more as well. Articles on education, marriage, and other social topics. There's no magazine like it. Now, we have nothing to sell on the World Tomorrow program. This booklet, as well as the Plain Truth magazine, is yours free for the asking, free of charge, no cost, no obligation. We're simply not going to ask you for money. So, for a free subscription to the Plain Truth magazine and this free booklet, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, call toll-free 1-800-423-4444. That's 1-800-423-4444. It's a free call, and we have hundreds of operators available to take your call. But if you don't get through right away, jot the number down and try calling us again in 10 to 15 minutes. That's 1-800-423-4444. Or in Canada, call toll-free 1-800-663-2345. Now, if you prefer to write, then send your request to The World Tomorrow, Pasadena, California, 91123. That's The World Tomorrow, Pasadena, California, 91123. Next week on The World Tomorrow, David Hume will be discussing one of the most important of all Christian festivals, Easter. The Easter season is a time for rich pageantry and many colorful traditions. Church services on Palm Sunday mark the beginning of Easter week, which culminates with sunrise services and includes hot cross buns, colored eggs, and even chocolate Easter bunnies. But what do all of these Easter traditions and customs have to do with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ? Don't miss next week's program, The Plain Truth About Easter. Thanks for being with us today. I'm Richard Ames for The World Tomorrow.
For the free literature offered on this program, write The World Tomorrow, Pasadena, California, 91123. Or you may call this toll-free number from anywhere in the United States, 1-800-423-4444. In Canada, call toll-free 1-800-663-2345. If the lines are busy, please try again in 10 to 15 minutes. The preceding program and all literature were produced and sponsored by the Worldwide Church of God.